several stripy-looking antelope who don't have much to say on this particular rainy morning, although I'm sure if they could talk, they would be very, very grateful for the rain. So we've got a herd of Nyala delicately picking their way through the undergrowth, including a tiny little one at the back there. Not tiny, but quite a young little Nyala. Hello. The one thing that's immediately noticeable with this particular herd is that they're very skittish. Unbelievably skittish, which is unusual for the Nyala around this particular area because the camps are right next to us. They've become very, very familiar with people and with vehicles. It makes me wonder, it's probably just a byproduct of the evening that they spent last night with the storms and the wind and the rain, but it could also be that this was what Karula was after last night, and could even be what she was successful in catching. That's impossible for us to know, and less than until we find her, but this is one of the reasons why she spends such a lot of time around this particular spot. It's the perfect hiding hole for some of her favorite prey species, Nyala and bushbuck. And she's been particularly successful with baby Nyala over the last few weeks, since they started to be born in their peak birthing season. Okay, how are we going to do this with this roof? Let me try and figure this one out. Try for one last view, although they are playing hard to get this morning. Hello, ladies. Yes, you're beautiful. Let's try and duck around here. This roof does make for slightly lengthier maneuvering periods. Because essentially, we've got to face the animal front on at all times. There we go, how's that? Slightly improved, but not by much. I have no doubt that Karula is hidden away somewhere in here. Now we just have to get lucky, really. I'm hoping that we might see a drag mark in the road, and that might lead us to her. A drag mark where she's caught something and pulled it along. Something, for example, much like this little baby Nyala. But if we don't have any success, that's okay, because stopping to look at, having had that whole conversation about the Big Five and how I prefer not to use it, stopping to look at gorgeous antelope and other creatures in the rain is also pretty spectacular. I love Nyala. They are gorgeous. Looking thoroughly damp, but not terribly miserable, and definitely not shivering. And welcome to Michael, who would like to know about the Nyala's breeding, because I said that Karula's been successful with Nyala babies over the last few weeks. And actually, that was a good point, Michael, because the way that I phrased that was probably a little bit misleading. Nyala don't have a set breeding season. They breed throughout the year, so they're not like Impala, where Impala will all give birth roughly around this time. However, there is always a peak, and that you'll find that for almost every single herbivore out here, that there will be a peak. If they don't have a set breeding season, a lot of their babies will be born in the summer months. And that's just because it's our rainy season, which means there's more food available. So that's relatively easy to understand. But they don't have a set breeding season. I've seen tiny, tiny babies in winter in the past. So it's not like Impala. And perhaps another reason why that might be the case. They're all disappearing now, and they're making life very difficult. There's another reason why that might be the case, and that is that Impala have a tendency to live in more open areas and rely more on the safety of numbers, or safety in numbers. And that means that by having all of their babies at one time, there's a confusion of little Impala lambs running about, which might ensure the safety, or at least increase the chances of survival for a little baby Impala, because there's just so many little baby Impala at the same time. Nyala have a slightly different approach to things. Yes, you see them in herds, but they're more sort of loose aggregations, and they don't necessarily stay in these groups. And they will usually rely more on hiding away than they will on safety and numbers. So it doesn't make sense for them to want to synchronize their breeding cycle. And that's why you'll also find Impala, no, silly me, sorry, don't be confusing, Nyala bulls fighting at any time of the year or dancing with each other at any time of the year, because they could potentially mate at any time of the year. Right, Nyala, you are playing hard to get, and I'm not going to attempt to maneuver once again. Well, I have to attempt to maneuver once again because I have to try and get back onto the road I was on. It's certainly a test of one's spatial awareness. Okay, one last road for us to drive down to see whether or not Karula didn't meander in this direction. Not meander. Karula only meanders when she doesn't have something to eat. When she has something to eat, she walks with a purpose. And I'm really hoping, I'm going super slowly, that it might be in a tree. And James, you say with all of these puddles around, it might help or provide plenty of opportunity to allow Hosana to hone his terrapin hunting skills. I had heard and I had seen screenshots of Hosana playing in puddles and catching terrapins. I had a jolly good chuckle at that. It's utterly adorable. And he is such a little character, isn't he? It's been so much fun and such a pleasure watching these cubs grow up. I think Hosana might find himself in for a nasty surprise one of these days if he ever does actually manage to catch a terrapin. He could find himself with a nasty nip or potentially covered in foul-smelling excrement, which is of course one of the big reasons why we don't play with terrapins or pick terrapins up. It would be a learning curve though. But yes, there'll be plenty of opportunities. Hopefully Hosana is just around the next corner playing in a puddle, catching terrapins. Stranger things have happened. But it's been a while since I've had a lucky moment like that. Okay, while I concentrate on navigating the newly soaking roads and try not to slip down the hill and search for Karula at the same time, let's go and find out how Taylor's morning is going.
Before I say anything, I want you all to listen very carefully. Can you hear them? Oh my goodness. Craig, I'm going to actually have to reposition. There's so many bullfrogs. I'm so excited. This is amazing. I'm going to just position us differently because there's also a vehicle coming through. But you're going to be so amazed at what I'm about to show you. Right, let us position like this, looking over. We're at Hosana's pan, of course. This is the new name because it's Hosana's favorite spot. Now I'm just going to turn up like this, wait for this vehicle to go past, and then look what is bounding in the water in front of us. Hi Herbie! There's Herbie, look! There's Herbert! Herbert, what you doing? Are you driving? That's so exciting. Herbert's got some guests. That's wonderful. You can show Herbie going off. There's Herbie. Bye, Herbie.
Bye, Tina. Enjoy.
Okay, bye. That's so exciting. Go, Herbert. Go, Herbert. He's got guests. He's got guests. He's driving around, showing them all the animals. Right, enough singing. But can you see all these massive, big frogs that are sitting in this pan? Look how cool they are. They're everywhere. You can actually see them. Well, I suppose you have to just find one. But there are so many of them. Have you found one yet, Craig? Okay, if you go towards the back of the pond, if you go straight back there, yes. If you go zoom in all the way, there are a whole lot of them. There's one. And you see those two? It actually looks like there's two of them. Now I'm going to sit very quietly so you can listen. And well, what you are watching at the moment is, of course, mating bullfrogs. Isn't this exciting? Now, there's various different ways that frogs will mate. And well, he's latched on nice and tight. Actually, we're going to change the view. Can you see this big one just down here? So just in front of the, I want to show you the reason why. Go down a bit. There we go. Watch that one, because it's calling, and you can actually see its vocal sac expanding. Look at this. How amazing is this? Now, frogs and toads and all these wonderful things are probably my favorite. I think I may enjoy them even a little bit more than elephants, but don't tell the elephants this. But now these are most likely all the big males. And you can hear them all calling. And what they're doing is that they're singing their beautiful song, hoping for a female to choose them. And if you listen very carefully, you'll notice that the males do not call over the top of each other. They call in between each other's calls. And now this is called time sharing. Can you hear that? So basically what time sharing is as they're calling in between each other's calls, they're not being disrespectful to each other, they're not sort of shouting over the top of one another. Everybody gets a turn. Oh my goodness, now look at all the action just up on the straight from that frog. If you go to the back, look at all of them, they've settled down again. Look how they're all coming out searching for mates. Now these bullfrogs, they would have buried themselves underground. Look at this. This is like a breeding frenzy. Searching for a mate, trying to find one. And if we're lucky, we may even hear a loud yelp. Because sometimes what happens in these sort of frenzies is that a male may grab another young male thinking that it's a female. Look, they're going to be chasing each other around. How cool is this? This is the most amazing thing I've seen in such a long time. Ah, it's so cool. You can see that looks like a couple of big males, how they've bloated themselves out. This is now my highlight for 2016. I've had such incredible sightings over the last few days, but this is my best. I've been waiting for such a long time to see something like this again, and I didn't get to see it last year. And I don't know what's on top of the water, but you can see there looks like there's, I wonder if those are eggs. Sort of in between those two big bullfrogs, you can see there's stuff sitting on top of the water. Can you see those little, they look like little pearls. Now I'm not sure from this angle, I'll have to probably get out at some point and investigate. But I suspect that there could be the eggs from one of the other frogs. And you can tell which one's the male and the female. You can see these males are sort of much bigger. Their ridges on their backs are a lot more prominent. And they seem to have a sort of more green underside. Now, Bree, you're wondering how big they are. These ones aren't particularly large, but a bullfrog can get probably smaller. I'm trying to think. If you take two tennis balls, let's do that. Take two tennis balls, put them together. That's probably the size of these frogs at the moment, and they can get a little bit bigger than that. I've seen some massive ones. But that whole entire frenzy that we're seeing in the distance is just absolutely spectacular. And you can just see how the water is just moving around, filled with life. I actually want to see if I can roll a little bit closer. Oh, go forward. Right, we'll have to stop. Oh, there's one running across the road. You might have to be quick to get that one. Look at that. He's out. Now, it's actually really funny when they do sort of hop along the ground. There he goes. Boom. And dive straight back into the water again. Let me go forward a little bit more, just so we can get a really cool view of these frogs. Don't worry, I won't go in. As much as I love the frogs, I don't know if I want to really go swimming with them, because I don't want to be confused as a frog. That would be terrible, don't you think? But you see how they've all come together now. They found the best spot in this wetland area. Now, Kate, you're wondering if there's going to be tadpoles in this pond soon. I think there are going to be a ridiculous amount of tadpoles, not just from the bullfrogs, but we've seen the foam nest frogs have already started to hatch. I'm sure the reed frogs have already laid their eggs. It's such a good opportunity now, as there is so much water around, and I suspect we'll probably get a bit more over the next few days too. Now I'm going to leave you to watch these frogs because I'm going to dash across the road quickly. I've seemed to have spotted a dead frog, and I actually want to bring it back to the vehicle so we can have a look. So enjoy, excuse me for 2 seconds. Or you can watch me run as well. Now this frog was just lying off the road. I don't know if it has been attacked by something, but it is literally on its way out, very sadly. You can see the ants have already started to feast on it. And this is very sad, of course, but it could have been anything. It doesn't look like it's been ridden over, otherwise it would still be squashed on the road. It was probably, you saw, about 2 or 3 meters off the road. Maybe something tried to eat it, but it also gives you a size. This isn't a particularly big one. This is quite a small one. And this will make for a tasty snack for anything, really. You'll see the mongoose love to eat frogs. You'll see them eating them. And what they'll do is there are parotid glands over here. You'll often find them in toads and frogs. And you'll normally see just sort of this part of the head left behind when a mongoose feasts on it. Sorry, I'm moving around quite a bit. And they don't want to eat those because that's where all the toxins are. But very sad that this one has passed on. I'm not sure what has happened. Maybe it got into a fight with another bullfrog, I don't know. But it is no longer living. So we shall leave it here. And I'm sure that something will feast on it. Right, let me jump in again. Get my blankies. I can see over the steering wheel. I've got so many layers on today because it was a little bit chilly this morning. There we go. Right. I just heard the end of Kirsty's message in going into my ear, and apparently I'm not allowed to leave without the frog, as James would like it for the tent, so we shall pick it up in a moment. But I think that this sort of breeding frenzy that we've got going on at the moment is going to continue, I think, throughout most of the day, which is quite exciting. Now, it's one thing to see so many bullfrogs like this. I hope we're going to see other frogs. Now, Bree, you have all the right to be a little bit confused. You're wondering, where did they come from? They've just popped up into the water. Do they hibernate? What is their story? So basically what has happened, and bullfrogs do it particularly well, and most of the frogs, they estivate. So they sort of go into these temporary periods, not quite like hibernation, where they will burrow underground. And Steph actually found one, I think it was probably a few weeks ago, on a walk, where he'd found this big bullfrog that was ready to already start digging itself out of its little burrow. So yeah, they go under mud, and then when there is enough rain, remember we've had a fair amount of rain building up, but this was the first decent amount of rain that we've had, and these of course, these little mud wallows and wetlands and natural pans are going to stay full for a much longer period than rather when we just have 3 or 4 mils of rain. You'll see the frogs won't come out. But now we are going to see the most amazing things. We're going to see the big explosions of the alates coming out. All the frogs have come out. We're going to be seeing lizards. I can't wait to find my first bushveld rain frog for the rainy season. But I think let's take one more closer look at these guys because they've all grouped up again. This is just wonderful. Now, unless you were wondering if I've ever seen a leopard hunter frog, I haven't, but if young Hosanna and Shongile were here at this pan, and I hope that they do make an appearance and come back to their favorite spots, I don't think that they will pass up a snack like this, especially if mom has gone off for a couple of days and perhaps their tummies are grumbling and they're starting to feel a little bit hungry. There's nothing stopping them feeding on a tasty snack like this. And I think that a bullfrog, because of its size, would actually be quite a nice snack to feast on, rather than something small like a raucous toad perhaps, or even a little rain frog. That wouldn't really be the tastiest meal. Look what's happening here. We've got a male mating with a female on the right, and the one that's hopping out of screen on the left is another male, and he was trying to chase and try and get the other male off of the female so that he could mate with her. It's sort of a dog-eat-dog world out here. This breeding pond is not for sissies. There's another one just creeping up into frame just below the two. And even just the sound is incredible. If you can record the sound, record it. I think I'm going to just sit quietly for the next minute and really just enjoy what's going on here. Isn't that just the most pleasant sound you've ever heard? It's so peaceful. I hope you can hear the splashing around that the bullfrogs are making. Look at all their heads popping up. They are so funny. Right, now I need to get out and pick this frog up so I can take it back to James so that he can inspect it under the microscope. And well, speaking of James, I'm going to send you back across to him in his cozy tent.
Yes, it is cozy. It is very cozy indeed, and I think David and I will probably remain here for the rest of the drive. It is cozy here, and we don't wish to trouble ourselves, not this early in my work cycle. You know, I'm only sort of, well, half an hour in, and I don't want to become uncomfortable at all. Now, I did find remnants of the violin spider. Have a look here. There we are, and that, I think, is one of the young violin spider spiderlings, but I think what's happened is that it's no longer actually resident within that husk. So that was probably one of the first or second iterations, if you like. What happens is they hatch, they're very small, they sort of live around their mothers for a while, and then they'll, just like all insects and all invertebrates, or most invertebrates will do, they'll crawl out of their exoskeletons as they get bigger and leave the empty husk in its place. And that's what I think this is here. So that's all that's left, unfortunately, of the violin spider and what was, well, I think, probably a fairly substantial clutch of eggs. Anyway, that's the story there, and I'll just show you around the rest of the skull. This is inside another buffalo skull. It's not the same one that we were looking at earlier. But I think that's all that there is there. Now, Michael, you are very correctly pointing out to me, and perhaps you're concerned for my well-being even. You say, aren't violin spiders one of the most dangerous? Well, yes and no. And you say also, if the mother isn't in here, couldn't it perhaps leap out and do us some harm? Michael, not really, and I'll tell you why. They are medically very important. They're not deadly. They could, I suppose, if you had a very bad reaction to them, then I suppose it is possible that what would happen is that it could kill you, maybe, but they have a venom that is, I think, largely cytotoxic with a bit of neurotoxic effect as well. So what would happen is that you'll get localized necrosis of the skin, and it'll be very sore indeed. And then perhaps if you had a very bad allergy, almost like an allergic reaction to it, you might struggle to breathe a bit. And if you were old and infirm, or perhaps very, very young, then perhaps it could kill you. But it wouldn't kill you. It wouldn't kill a young, vigorous fellow, well, like David, for example. It would be impossible. But he would certainly feel the effects of it. Is it dangerous? No, it's not dangerous, because I'm not sticking my fingers in there. It would be dangerous if I thought that the mother was in there and I just started popping my fingers inside there and feeling around. Then it would be very sore indeed, and maybe I would be in trouble. But no, to put the microscope in there, it's highly unlikely that the spider is going to come out at such a speed and leap onto my face at such vigor that I'd be unable to get out of the way. They don't attack. If you stick your hand into a log, for example, same reason that many of the scorpion bites happen here. You pick up a log, or you break off a piece of bark or something, and your fingers happen to get into the way of the spider, then it might bite you. But in a situation like this, I don't believe it's dangerous in the slightest. I'm afraid I failed to find out what that other spider was, and so I'm still looking for that. So I'm going to put the buffalo back there, and then what we're going to look at is this plant. And while we're doing that, Michael, you've got your other question is, do we get black widow spiders here? And the answer is yes, we do. The black button spider is the most medically important spider that we get in South Africa. And they have a largely neurotoxic venom, and yes, they can kill you. Again, it's not likely, though. Your body would probably actually process the venom eventually on its own, and I suspect you'd be able to survive. You'd feel very, very rough for a couple of days, probably 3 or 4 days, maybe even a week. But if you are old and sick or very young, yes, it might be able to kill you. But it's unlikely that it would kill you. And again, they're the same kinds of spiders. I don't know if you know what a black widow looks like, but basically it's a classic sort of spider with a big bulbous backside, small head, and of course the quintessential hourglass, red hourglass shape on the abdomen, and that gives away a black widow spider. And yes, they can certainly hurt you, but again, they live in sort of dark, cold corners, and so if you put your hand under a desk, for example, or perhaps into a crevice or something like that, they might bite you like that. So yes, you do get them here. Highly unlikely that you're going to get bitten. So I'm going to just show you this under the microscope. This, of course, the wonderfully named plant, the wandering Jew. Quite why this particular plant didn't celebrate Christmas with the rest of us over the last season, I don't really know. But that's what it is. And there are its anthers. No, I'm really failing dismally here to get this thing into the frame. There we go. Very nice. Isn't that beautiful? Now look at the delicate petals and see them come out on their little stalks. See how they've caught a little bit of water. And then what I'll try and do is just change the focus slightly. Yes, no. Oh, sorry, Kirsten. Let's come back to me and let me try and fix this thing properly. I'm being completely incompetent on this thing today. What it has to do is, there we go. Now I fixed it. It has to be at a certain angle for you to be able to move this the way you think it should move. Otherwise, you've got to kind of interpret it, and that's quite difficult, really, as you've seen. There we go. Ah, wonderful. Right, so those are the anthers that carry the pollen of the wandering Jew. And its botanical name is Commelina africana, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's what it is, but the genus is Commelina, and they're easy to identify because they all look the same shape. We get a blue one that looks almost identical. That's the petal there. Isn't that gorgeous? I think that is just too stunning. Marvellous. So that is the wandering Jew. And the last thing I want to show you on the wandering Jew is the leaves. There we are. Now, they don't have trichobothria, but they've certainly got hairs on them. And look how the hairs catch the water. Isn't that beautiful? The water and the sand, you can see it's been eaten by some caterpillars, probably on the side, or perhaps even a grasshopper or two. And they flower, I think one of the latest, actually, And they flower probably into the end of the rainy season. This is now the business end of the rainy season, of course. January and February is when we have most of the rain. We're only 3 days away from January, if you can believe it. I still can't actually quite fathom that that's the case. Anyway, that's why these comelinas come out, and this one, unfortunately, is already dying, because they love to be in water, and they can only be in water. They cannot be dry for any length of time. Right, let's go and get an update from Jamie Patterson. I'm going to hope that Taylor eventually brings me that frog so that we can look at it under the microscope.
And that is the joy, of course, of these rainy days. You get all kinds of exciting things like frogs and tortoises and one very soggy-looking something that's over there. Hold on a moment, I'll try and show you. While I try and get this eagle that's perched up on a dead tree, I have some very sad news. It appears as though Karula has done a very sneaky maneuver on all of us, and pulled a very sneaky maneuver. She's on Little Gowrie, which is the property to the south of our boundary, with both cubs, from what I've heard from the update on the Game Drive channel, so that's the way we all communicate as guides. Now, unfortunately, what that means is for us, we can't go and see her. They have found her, but she is outside of our traverse area. So whilst the animals don't have any kind of restrictions as to where they can go, we do. And one of those restrictions, oh, little terrapin, plop, into the smallest puddle in the world. Tiny little terrapin, where's Hosanna? This would be a much easier catch than the ones he was attempting. Look at it go. Racing along. Tiny little marsh terrapin onto the next puddle. It's amazing the distances these little chaps can cover. And somebody once said while we were sitting watching a terrapin move away from us that they look a little bit like a walking helmet. And I think that was a very apt, very perfect description. One of those sort of old army helmets. Slipping! Very slippery today. Oh dear, little one. Oh, they are comical. Look, his head's too big for his body. Looks ridiculous. You can see that powerful snapping jaw that I was talking about earlier. Well, that is definitely not a creature that I want to go and pick up. They are not quite. They are very smelly. Smelly to the point that I wouldn't be able to wash the smell off my hands for a few days. They're very, very pungent. And off he goes into some cover. Let's see. Maybe we can get another view of him. Now, he's on the right track, our little terrapin. There are lots and lots of puddles along this particular road. And in fact, I'm not going to go too much further along here. Sure, that's amazing. How am I going to do this? I can still see him, but it gives you a really nice idea as to the camouflage. If, of course, I could get you a view. No, I definitely can't. Okay, let's try this one more time. No, this roof is in my way. He's gone to ground. Okay. Oh no, and my bird's flown away. This is terribly tragic. Okay, he is... I've lost him completely now. He went somewhere in there. A little bit down and to the left. A little bit further down. He was at the base of this tree. Underneath the stump. A little bit further down. He was somewhere there. There, he's gone into that pile of leaves there. You can just see them shuffling around. And that's what terrapins do best. Particularly when they want to hide away from a threat, going under the cover of dried up leaves. That's a nice soggy environment for him to dig under and hide away. And this is where terrapins are hiding for most of our dry season, popping out in the wet season when there's puddles to go into. But since he or she hasn't managed to find a suitable puddle to hide away from us, when in doubt, go and hide yourself underneath the leaf litter. And it's now next to invisible, apart from the movement of the leaves, as it digs down. And they are quite good little diggers. Those powerful webbed feet that work so well for swimming also work well for digging. And there we go, you'd never know. Completely invisible. Amazing the different techniques that our animals have in terms of hiding away and survival. Now, if our little terrapin could see more than about an inch above the ground, you know, life's very different from that perspective, he would have seen that there is a big puddle, actually more of a pan, just over there to my right. So there's a lot of water over there. Perfect place. It's one of our buffalo's favorite wallowing spots. And throughout Nyala Road South, there's a whole series of these pans. Do we have any mating frogs? No, just one dragonfly. No bullfrogs here. Okay. We're not going to drive along Nyala Road South because that's another road that gets closed when it does rain heavily, which it has done. So we'll go off in search of other things. At least we know where Karula is. Now, apparently, the lions that we heard calling this morning are also somewhere to the south. In a property known as Hoffman's, which is the sort of southern part of the northwestern corner of Djuma. But when they roared, it sounded like they were here on Djuma, so they must have crossed at the start of the sunrise safari. And welcome to Janet on our sunrise safari. Janet, I hope you're enjoying your live safari experience. There's so many exciting things to show you on a rainy day like today. Janet, you want to know why aren't we allowed to go into certain areas? Why aren't we allowed to drive on certain properties? Janet, it's a relatively complicated explanation, but essentially it's the same for everybody. Every single lodge, every single piece of land has what's known as a traverse area where they can drive, and that'll be different for each property and for each lodge. So, for example, Nkoro can go certain areas we can't go, and we can go certain areas that they can't go. And it's one of the big reasons is so as not to overstress a certain area. You don't want 40 vehicles driving around in the same place or trying to get to the same sighting of Karula, for example. So today is a quiet day, and it could end up that she's the only leopard sighting that's been called in. And that's not because she's the only leopard, it's just because the only leopards that's been found. So then you'd get sort of 40 vehicles trying to get in from every which direction if everybody could drive in everybody else's property. So it just ensures quite a nice even spread of vehicles in different places. And there's all sorts of things involved. Traverse is worth money. It's more complex than just spreading out, but that's the simplest explanation. And it basically ensures also that in terms of the driving, in terms of off-road driving, in terms of pressure on the animals, it just reduces that, so that everything is nicely balanced in the way in which we do things. And there's always something to see on any property. The animals don't have to worry about the boundaries, they can go where they want to. So what might be your lucky day one day will be your unlucky day the next day. It's just luck. We were very lucky in that the Nkuhumas decided to den on Djuma when they had their cubs. And as a result, we had them for pretty much every day for 2 months. And it was lovely. It was absolutely wonderful. But cubs have got bigger. The Nkuhumas are moving a bigger distance now. And that's perfect. That's exactly what they should be doing. So we take the good times when we get them, and we take the quiet times when we get them. Wouldn't be nearly as much fun if we could predict what we were going to see. Oh, I don't want to get stuck here. Oh, I see what you're after. Oh, man. This roof. Hold on a second. We'll go around. Don't want to get stuck here either. It's not that muddy though. Haha. Another creature that will be rejoicing that we've had some rain, because of course more rain means more insects, means more food for our woodland kingfishers that have returned. Bye. that have returned in order to breed in this area. So as much insect life as possible is wonderful for them. There we go. Well done, Kenan. Beautiful little birds with their gorgeous chirr call. And I think sometimes we take them for granted. We get very excited when they return to us, and we spend the first few days of their return looking at them, and then we kind of take them for granted and forget that they're here. But they're always wonderful to look at, and they are beautiful. And as you can see, the drizzle has started up once again. Not a problem for our little Kingfisher with his waterproof feathers. And a perfect morning for chirping and singing away. Stopping to have a jolly good preen. Cool. The rain is falling once again. Let's go and see what other joyful things we can find in the rain. Now, James, something that has been absent in our bird life, and we've got our kingfishers and our cuckoos, but we haven't seen very many storks and herons. And James, you wanted to know, sorry, there's a spider web on my nose. You wanted to know whether or not, with all of the rains and the returns of the frogs, could we perhaps anticipate the return of the herons and the storks? Probably, absolutely. When I went into the Kruger, I was astounded by the number of storks that I was seeing around the Letaba and the Olifants River. Lots and lots and lots of white storks, lots of saddle-billed. They're all around, but they've gone to greener pastures, but perhaps with this little bit of rain. But then, of course, everywhere's had rain, which is great news. And the southern sections of the Sabi Sand had much more rain than we did. It's still falling, though, in this gentle drizzle, which is perfect. It's a soaking rain as opposed to a vicious rain. And the hippo will be happy as well. Much more water for them to hide in. Yesterday we went past a hippo on Cheetah Plains that was distinctly disgruntled by our presence, and immediately got up and ran away from the pan that he was in, just because he didn't feel safe because there wasn't enough water. Oh, puddles! So many puddles! I would get out and jump in one, but it's a little bit chilly for that. I might do it towards the end of the drive, when I can anticipate dry clothing at the end of it. While we go off in search of more marvelous rain things and things to show you, let's go over to Taylor to find out where she is and what she's up to.
I've just done a very quick delivery to James. I dropped the bullfrog off into his wonderful laboratory, which is of course the tent. And then I also heard, well, Kirsty told me from James, who played a bit of broken telephone, and apparently James said he'd heard the lions calling, and it sounded like sort of down this way, so that's probably, he said, around maybe Arathusa airstrip. So that's where we're going to head now. So we've just got a little bit of driving to do, and we'll try not dawdle too much. I'm going to jump onto the Power Lines Road and head around there, and then get to Triple M as quickly as possible so we can jump onto Arathusa. And the closer we get to that area, I should be able to radio the other guides and ask them if they'd maybe heard what was going on that side, maybe give us an update. So that is our plans for the morning, but it seems as though, well, the rain is coming in, and I think we're going to have to put our camera cover back on again, as it stopped raining completely, and you can see there's lots of little rain droplets. So watch what happens now. Over the cover it comes. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Look how cool this is. This is the types of things we have to do. And look at that, as quick and easy as that. But now we've got a couple more things we need to put on. And now I'm sorry, Kirsty, did you say we have to go? We're going to go to Jamie while we put on our covers. Ooh, my bad, sorry. I'm having interesting time. Now, like I said, we've just got to very quickly put this rain cover on properly to protect the equipment, but let's go back across to James in the tent and see what he's going to do with that frog.
I'm doing a bit of a frog dissection here, everybody. If you are a slightly sensitive viewer, I must just warn you, this is a bit grim. But there we have the insides of this frog. Isn't that nice? It looks like a thing of ER here. There's the heart. Please don't beat, because then I'll feel really bad. It is contracting slightly. It's a promise this frog is dead. It is the same one that Taylor's just brought to me. Anyway, that's the heart. I'm going to do quite a lot more dissection over the course of the next little while. If this does make you feel a little sick, I'm sorry about that. Tony, you've made a very amusing joke. You say a croaked frog. Ha ha ha, aha, aha, ha, aha, ha, ha, ha. Well done, Tony. Good joke. Anyway, this is a young male. I know that, of course, because I'm a genius. That's not true. I know that because Stefan came through here and said, "Oh, it's yellow on the bottom, and therefore it's a young male." All right, now, David, I warn you, what's going to happen now is probably going to make you ill. I'm going to tip out, basically, the insides of this frog. But what is astounding, before I do that, everyone, is how tough the skin is. I tried to get through it with this knife. It failed horribly to get through it, and so I've had to use these sort of, well, relatively blunt scissors. That's the only way I could open it up. It's now making a rather nasty sort of a tearing noise, which is very unpleasant indeed. Anyway, shall we have a look, Dave?
Oh, right.
Here we go. Oh. Yes, and you're all now reminiscing about your high school frog dissection lesson. I suspect you probably had a bit more competence than I'm showing right now. But what I find so interesting about something like this is that what we have here is the same organs that we as human beings would have. And isn't that amazing that something so distantly related could have the same organs? That is the liver over there that we're looking at now. We'll have a look at it under the microscope. I imagine that must be the gallbladder. I mean, I'm no frog anatomist, but that's probably what that is. And then we go underneath the liver, and that would seem to be a part of the large intestine. It's quite interesting. It might actually be the stomach. We can probably cut that open just now to see what it's been eating. And I must just apologize again if this is a bit grim for you. I'm sorry, but it's so fascinating. And here, the meters, feet of small intestine folded over inside. And I'm going to just try and get the heart out. I want to try and get the heart out. It's a big heart. There it is there. In fact, and you can see that it is most certainly dead, this frog, because there is coagulated blood in there. There's all sorts of air inside, and I would like to try and find the lungs as well. Anyway, I'm not going to subject you to the actual cutting part of it. What we'll do is do that while you're away. Now I'm going to turn him over and open his mouth, because his mouth has got an interesting adaptation. It's a tooth. Yeah, he's still showing a little bit of nervous reaction, so I'm actually, it's a little disconcerting. You know, when animals die, they have those nervous twitches, and there's no ways this thing is alive, but it keeps doing nervous twitches, which makes me go, oh. So I'm going to leave him like that for now. Justin, you want to see the brain? I will try and extricate the brain for you. I don't want you to have to watch me doing that. The one thing I did want to show you before we leave the tent again, and I'm just going to be very careful about what I touch now, is under the microscope here we've got the scorpion that I had, and we were doing a little bit of dissection there. And what I wanted to try and show you, was the cloacal opening. And it's not called a cloaca, of course, it's called an operculum. And the operculum is where I'm pointing there with this piece of grass. That is where just about all of the business of the scorpion happens with mating. So if this was a male, that's where it would produce the sperm from. If it was a female, that's where the sperm would go into. So he would drag her over sort of a pile of sperm, and she'd take it up into that opening. And it's also, of course, the opening from which they defecate and urinate, so get rid of waste products. Isn't that interesting? Anyway, it's right underneath that sort of hard chitinous part of the scorpion there. Very nice. Now, that's an interesting question. What I will do, Liana, you're interested in whether or not, if this, with the scorpion being dead, if we were to still get stung, if we were to stick the sting into a person, would it still affect them? What I will do when we next go off is stab David in the leg with the scorpion tail. If he reacts, I will tell you. If he dies, of course, well, we have a Jandre currently lying in his bed, so he can come and take over on camera. So once I've stabbed David in the leg with the scorpion tail, we'll find out if a dead scorpion is in fact still able to sting you. I'm being, of course, well, largely facetious. I don't think so, and I'll tell you why. Because, of course, when a scorpion stings you, I think there probably has to be a contraction of some sort of muscle that will cause the poison gland to inject poison. So I think once it's dead, all it would do is kind of give you a bit of a spike. Right, we're going to hand you back across to Jamie. While you're with Jamie, I'm going to cut this frog up a little bit further and find out what it has to offer us.
Gruesome but fascinating things happening in the tent. In the meantime, I've just had another update on the Game Drive channel that came from Andrew, who said that it's just Karula's cubs that are to the south, not Karula herself. She's not with them, which is interesting. It's fascinating. I'd love to know what went on last night, that she was with them and then she wasn't with them. She'd gone back to fetch them, and fascinating. So she could definitely still be on Djuma. And I've just heard a squirrel frantically alarm calling and looking in this too, actually, looking in this direction. So I'm just checking really carefully and very slowly along one of Karula's favorite areas to see whether she hasn't popped out here. And while we search for our lovely Queen Karula, who of course is always incredibly elusive and very tricky to find, Janet, you wanted to know whether or not we ever collar our animals so that we can record their movements and their data from day to day. And the answer is very occasionally yes. It is quite an invasive thing, putting a collar on an animal. By invasive, I just mean that you have to dart it, you have to put it under general anesthetic, which is, as it is with humans, carries a certain degree of risk. So you can, and animals do die during the course of those operations. It's rare, but it does happen. And it does, of course, constitute as an interference. So it is generally avoided where possible. I mean, we see the animals enough that we can provide over the months and over the years quite a good record of their movements and their territories and so on. We did have, of course, the story of the leopard with the collar, Sindile, Shadow's son, Karula's grandson, who was collared for a very specific reason, and that was because he'd caught a dog, a feral dog that had wandered into the reserve and that had turned out later to be rabid, and he was put into quarantine for 8 months, but he was very young at the time, and then released back into the wild with a collar to monitor his release, to monitor his movements and to see exactly how he adapted to it, because when he was taken into captivity, he was young, he wasn't even fully independent yet. And by the time he was released, obviously his mom wasn't interested, and he was old enough to be moving on his own, but with 8 months lack of experience out here. And he proved to be absolutely fine. But he was collared so that that data could be used and that research could be used for future situations like that. I mean, obviously we'd prefer to avoid them, but at least now forewarned is forearmed, and we'd know exactly how a young male leopard in that situation might be expected to move about. But for the most part, no, we don't collar our animals. There are some collared elephants, some collared buffalo I've seen that will be part of various research organizations monitoring their movements. But between all of us as guides, it's pretty easy to keep track of where everything is. We might lose them for a few days, but we catch up with them very shortly. And that's definitely an animal that we wouldn't be putting a collar on. Well, actually, I think it'd be quite fascinating to collar an impala, just to get an idea of where they go and what they do. Although, again, I think we pretty much know. We've become very used to the various impala herds of this area and where they all are. A bachelor herd. Still, they've split off into their bachelor herds and breeding herds. The hormones have confused things. All of the females, all of the adult females have given birth, which means that the males are a little bit confused, think it's mating time, which of course it is not. And they've split off into these bachelor groups, and we often see them fighting with each other, chasing each other around, for no clear apparent reason, because it's not going to bring them any fortune with the females. They've all got babies to take care of. Ah, yes, relieving himself, taking after James. It's because James is in the tent, watching. Okay, they're not alarm calling, they're not stressed at all, so whatever frightened that squirrel was not a leopard, or we would most definitely have seen the reaction of the impala. And that unfortunately is very true of squirrels. They tend to give false alarms on a regular basis. Oh, look at that! Gosh, I feel blind now. There's a wildebeest there, at the back, behind the impala, lying down, sheltering from the rain and the wind. Just goes to show, sometimes if you just sit and watch as opposed to driving around, you find all sorts of exciting things, including what looks like a male wildebeest. Let's go a bit closer so that we can see him properly. Ah, lots of impala lying down. Sorry, boy. Morning. I suppose you didn't get much sleep last night, or if you did, it would have been very restless and filled with nightmares of leopards. Don't worry, boy. Ah, it's okay. Yes, well, it is 7:30 in the morning, you know. Time to wake up. Male wildebeest, that is obviously dominant in this area. My mum always says that she thinks they look like they've been put together by all of the spare parts and the leftovers after all of the other animals were made. And the wildebeest got the raw end of the deal. I like wildebeest. I find them thoroughly entertaining. And I'm quite saddened that this year we haven't seen the herd hanging around Djuma, or indeed Cheetah Plains all that often. Because it was such a joy last year, to watch the wildebeest calves as they grew. They were born and they played, and it was very special. That's something I feel like we've missed out on this year. He goes scraping his feet, actually marking... No, he's not marking his territory. I think he's digging to lie down again. There we go. Plonk. And back down. And they always do that, I've noticed, wildebeest. Before they lie down, they use their front feet to dig and make it... I don't know if that really makes it more comfortable, but that seems to be their approach, much like perhaps some of you with dogs at home. They will dig up the ground a little bit before they lie in it. Wildebeest have scent glands, which is why initially I said he's marking his territory, and then I changed my mind. He's not marking his territory, he's just digging to be more comfortable. But between the two halves of his hooves on his back feet, he's got scent glands. And you'll find that with a territorial bull like this one, there'll be certain areas that he spends a lot of time in, usually underneath trees. And when you do find that spot, that his regular marking spot, there's a midden where he deposits all of his dung, and you'll also find that the tree where he rubs his intraorbital glands, so the glands around his eyes, carries a very, very distinctive wildebeest scent. Sorry, fly flew up my nose. And back to sleep again. And this is what a lot of our animals do on a day like today. And we all know that a rainy day is nice for a bit of a lie in bed, and these animals are no different, particularly because it's chilly and it's windy. Though by lying down, he's just reducing his surface area, and since he is damp, it's definitely cooling him down. And it's a nice opportunity where, after a frightening evening, with all of the rustles of the wind and the noises from the storm, a nice opportunity to catch up on a bit of rest. So I doubt many animals would have had any last night. Cursory glance for a passing Impala. Stephanie, you say that you're very surprised that Wildebeest, that people think that Wildebeest are ugly. I agree, Stephanie. I don't think they're ugly at all. I actually think they're quite pretty. Well, no. Let's not go so far as pretty. I mean, we have got... Oh, there we go. Sorry. Ephraim's just calling in lion tracks that have gone north of our boundary, back into Buffelshoek. Our cats don't want to be on Djuma today. Stephanie, you're right. I think that wildebeest are... Okay, I wouldn't go so far as to call them pretty, but I don't think they're ugly at all, and the calves are utterly adorable. Those tan-coloured little ones that bounce around and play. I mean, look at him. He's adorable. Not adorable. Let's not exaggerate, but he's definitely not ugly. Hey, boy. Also known as the stereotype, the sort of the old guiding cliches that they're known as the clowns of the bush. They are pretty funny, though, and they often do bizarre things for no apparent reason, chase each other around and play, which I love. I love watching animals play. A very light-hearted feeling about it. You're not ugly. No, not at all. They're also built for a very specific purpose, and they're one of the fastest antelope that we get out here. And not just the fastest, they've got the greatest stamina. They're one of the antelope with the greatest stamina. That ability to run over very, very long distances. Oh, we're up again. Yes, you show off your body. You've got a lovely body, big, powerful shoulders. Beautiful. Right, I think we should cross over to the mad scientist. So the tent seems to bring that out in James. So let's cross over to Frankenstein and see what he's up to in the tent.
We've created life. Many of you suggested it, just as Stefan came in here and he said, if you really want to freak yourself out, put some salt on the heart. Well, that's what we've done. And, well, there's the heart, and it's beating. This thing is not alive. It is absolutely dead, but the heart is beating as a result of salt. And I'm utterly freaked out by it. I mean, I feel quite sort of shocked, horrified. Isn't that unbelievable? So all I did was take some rock salt, pop it on there like that, and it started to beat. And that is the benefit, of course, everybody, of electrolytes. So let it be known that electrolytes are extremely important to you. I'm not exactly sure of the biological mechanism through which this has happened, but I'm going to figure it out. Now, I originally told you that was the heart there. That isn't the heart. That's a lung. And it's a lung filled with fluid. That's why it's got that kind of, it's filled with blood. That's why it's got that sort of bubbly look to it. It's one of the lungs. The other one must be under this side here somewhere. But I will try and bring the heart out. That's it there. Beating away as a result of salt that we put on it. Isn't that astounding? Now, I know this is pretty grim, pretty disgusting, but it is absolutely fascinating, and I'm so grateful to Taylor for finding it. Now, you can see it's slowing down again. This is just unbelievable. So I haven't got a huge amount further than I did when I last saw you. Safe to say that I have not removed the brain. I am going to try and get the intestines out and try and spread them out and see how long they are, because I suspect they'll probably be about, 2 feet or so. There's much intestine in here. It's rather disgusting, rather grim. And then I will try, and you can see what I wanted to say was, of course, well, if you are a French viewer, perhaps, I'm sure your mouth is watering at that. Look at that very fine frog's leg there. I imagine cooked to perfection with some garlic. It would taste not entirely unlike, David, chicken. It looks to me like a fairly well-redded chicken thigh. I'm not going to be eating that for breakfast. The thought of that makes me very ill. MMS Sky or MSS Sky, you're wondering if putting salt on a human heart would work as well. I imagine it would, yeah, I'm sure. I don't think, look, if you meet somebody who's had a heart attack, remember that in order to put salt on their heart, you've actually got to get to the heart. And in this case, I've cut away the sternum. You don't want to be doing that on a heart attack victim. I think possibly without severe medical training, you would be doing quite a lot more damage than you would good. But yes, I imagine the principle is probably the same. You can see it slowing down now and the beating's becoming much more irregular. It's just kind of sort of squelching around a bit now. It's not sort of beating with that obvious heartbeat. Absolutely astounding stuff. It really is just fantastic. Anyway, I'm going to continue this. Larry, you say for more of a freak out, hold a pepper shaker in front of its nose. I don't know if you're being serious or not. I might actually try that and see what happens. Anyway, what I'm going to try and do, I'm going to get a scalpel one day. I'm going to cut away a bit more of the skin and the sort of bits and pieces holding it together here and see if we can't actually extract the heart entirely. Because it's in a whole lot of... well, not a sac as such, but there is a protective layer of epithelium of some sort. There we are. And there, the heart is actually coming out now. There we are. That's it there. That is freaky. David, are you suitably freaked out?
Definitely.
It looks like it's a living thing. Absolutely astounding. Well, I don't know what killed this frog, but we almost brought it back to life. Of course, sewing it back together from where I now have it, well, that would be quite difficult, don't you think, David? It would require almost the same amount of skill as was required to sort of bring Brian's foot back into function. I'm sure you've all seen Brian's stitched foot, everyone. It wasn't quite as badly injured as this frog is currently injured now. Okay, let's try it and do a little bit more. If this does get a little bit rough for you, I'm sorry, I apologize, but this is too good an opportunity to miss. We're going to now try and take out the stomach and the digestive tract. And then we'll try and discover what this froggy had as its very last meal. All right, so I think we'll probably have to detach it from here. And I think this is going to get very disgusting indeed. So let's head across to Taylor, who, as Kirsten says, has this frog's relatives, and they are alive.
These ones are indeed a little bit more on the alive side. Now I've come back again to Twin Dams and of course this big wetland that has now become after all the rain, because I've got wind that a big male lion is apparently approaching from the south and seems to be coming this way, as well as all the bad weather. The wind is picked up and I can see another massive big rain cloud on its way. They should, that I think is going to be here in a moment. But I want you to have a look at what's going on now. There's a lot of tension now between these frogs. Is that they're all chasing each other around, but they're chasing each other to the point where they're leaping out of the water. So we're going to have a challenge now. We're going to see, as these frogs leap about, who can get the best screenshot. And I think James is going to have to decide who has the best screenshot. So try and get one as the frogs leap about and chase each other, and get one mid-air. You can hashtag Safari Live with your pictures, or you can send them through. Actually, I think let's just do it on Twitter. Let's just do hashtagging Safari Live, because then James will be able to see all the pictures that you see through. Now, I hope he's listening, but this could be really, really cool. Now, like I said, it's hard work. So I think, Craig, let's find some that look quite active, and then let's stick on them. Like the ones on the left, there's about 3 of, there we go, those ones on the left-hand side. They seem to be chasing each other around quite a bit. So let's stick on them. Then we go a little bit closer because we need to try and get a really cool screenshot. There we go, that's cool. So now, are you ready? You ready to try try and take as many screenshots as you can? So these are the males that are chasing each other around, competing for all the girls like we've been seeing. And they're incredible swimmers, these frogs. They move so quickly, and they even move very quickly as they're wading through this sort of shallow water. There's some action coming this way. More frogs moving in. Oh, I can actually hear. It sounded like someone is talking. I think this male lion is quite close by. But above the sound of the frogs and the wind, it's making it a bit difficult for me to hear if it is indeed a vehicle that's just on the other side. I'm going to keep looking over my shoulder just to make sure that that male lion doesn't sneak in and then disappear again. But isn't this so beautiful? Oh, wow, can you see these two here that have come right out of the water? We just have to see if the pole is going to be in the way. I hope it's not in the way. I think it is just in the way. That's so cool. I know the pole, sorry, I don't want to move because otherwise they're going to jump back into the water. But how incredible is that? Look at the pattern on the female. See how she's a little bit more... Oh, I pulled my earpiece out. I'm so sorry. That's why I can't hear Kirsty. There we go. I'm back in again. I can actually hear what's going on now. Sorry about that. Look how blotchy she is. So you can see the males have got... Oh, right. Very quick link. Let's go across to Jamie.
Guys. Hello, guys. Hello, Ellies. Hello, Mom. Hello, Mommy. Alright, big girls. Hello. Hello. Nice and still, Kenan. Hi, guys. Hello, hello. Hello, little one. Don't be naughty, little boy. Okay. Okay, little Bubba. Hi. 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 The bull's pushing them. All right, little one. All right, little one. Love moments like that. Sorry about that. I was just concentrating on the elephants just to make sure that they were perfectly relaxed coming past us because we do have a roof on, so I was just hoping that the roof wasn't going to suddenly flap and give one of them a fright. But that was so, so cool. There is nothing like that feeling. We actually stopped very far back from those elephants and they chose to come towards us. And as you can see, that's the best way to approach animals. When the animal approaches you, that's when they feel at their most comfortable. So we didn't push into their personal space, they chose to come towards us, and they had lots of options open to them, and they just decided that that was the way that they wanted to go. And lucky for us, it was right next to us. At one point, when that little baby came past, I probably could have just reached out my hand and I could have touched it. Not that I would ever do that, because that's a blatant disrespect to the animals. It's also very, very dangerous. But it is a stunning moment like that. Sorry if I'm standing by. Sorry guys, I just got a call on the Game Drive channel. I was racing off in a certain direction. Sorry, hold on one second. If I'm still on Shabam Road with Sim and Love, I'm going to be making my way there. Thank you. Right, so I got caught in a traffic jam because I was racing off towards those buffalo. Remember the buffalo that we saw earlier? Well, you're not going to believe this, but one of the lionesses has just come out of the Buffalo's Hook property, which is to the north of our boundary, and she caught one. Can you believe it? While we've been wandering around looking for various things. but it was worth it just for that incredible elephant experience. I'm going to keep going though. I'm going to keep going and start moving towards that line. But what an incredibly special moment. Kenan, how are you feeling? Good. There is nothing like that moment, like that feeling when elephants are right next to you. And you can watch their behavior as they do that. And if you play back, you'll be able to see one female standing in front of us with her ears open, not aggressive at all. It's not aggressive. It's just as if to say, listen, I'm bigger than you. Don't you do anything funny. And when you're in a position like that with an elephant herd all around you, and particularly with small babies, your behavior is incredibly important. Now, there was no way that I could switch on the engine and move at that point, because all that would have done is startle them and make them scared. So we just had to sit it out. We just sit tight. They displayed absolutely no signs of aggression. They were perfectly comfortable with us. And that makes for an absolutely magical moment, really. I love those moments, and I'm so glad now that I'm back from leave, my first morning drive, that we got to experience that. It's so cool. Tiny little baby. Random person 101 was holding their breath. Random person was holding their breath and says that even they were scared. I would be lying if I said that your heart rate doesn't always go up a little bit when something like that happens. And it's not, I mean, for me, because I've spent a lot of time with elephants, it's not fear. But I'd be stupid if it didn't have that reaction, because they are very big and they are very intelligent, and they do think things through. And there's nothing like that moment when you sit and you look into their eyes. And the whole time you would have noticed that I was talking to them. And that's not because I think they understand a single word that I'm saying, because I don't think that they do. But I do think that I know that they understand tone. They recognize tone. So whilst they weren't understanding my words, by just keeping my voice low and speaking softly to them, it was just making sure that we didn't surprise them, didn't frighten them in any way. Right, now switch gears, and I'm off towards those lions that are now on Buffelshoek Cutline. Let's go over to Taylor for an update.
Jamie, you've got to drive as fast as you can so we can catch the lions this morning. We're still sitting at my favorite little pan, and I'm watching the frogs, and Craig managed to spot this Wahlberg's eagle, and it's feasting on something. Now, with the amount of frogs that are around here at the moment, it wouldn't even pass my mind for a second that it's most likely feasting on a frog. As we haven't really seen too much out this morning, I saw one beaks-hinged tortoise very quickly. But other than that, it's really just these big bullfrogs. And I think I can see a leg. It's hard to see because it is very far away from us. And you can see very delicately munching away on that frog. These frogs are getting so violent. They are jumping on each other, pushing each other over. I think we still need to play our competition. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just reverse. And we're going to watch these ones over here. They're all jumping at the most magnificent heights. We'll try and park you that you can see. So, Craig, we're watching these ones over here. And you'll see they just, of course, down below. Remember, it's difficult. But try and see if you can get a picture of them jumping around. So you can see the two frogs I'm talking about is the one that we can see in the middle of the screen, and then there's one to the left as well that keep chasing each other. Here he comes. So here comes... Oh, wonderful, Justin. I believe that you've sent a very good screenshot through. Thank you so much. I can't wait to have a look at them a little bit later. Let's see if they're going to jump again, because I shall show you just before we leave the incredible photo I got to snap of them leaping about. And it's quite impressive because especially because you have a male that's mating with a female, then being chased by another male. When they leap out of the water, you sort of get 3 frogs together. It's so impressive. But they are all out and about today. Hello, beautiful. And I'm wondering if I should go over and give that frog a big kiss. Maybe it turns into a prince. I've never actually tried that before. And I'm sure Kirsty's probably sitting in final control saying, yes, Taylor, get out and go and give it a kiss. Aren't you, Kirsty? But I won't. I won't give it a kiss. We will just leave them as they are. There they go. Watch this. Let's see if they're gonna plan a little chase over here. You've got to be patient with these types of things. There we go. Here he comes. Hey! Wow! Look how they can jump. Didn't succeed. He did not let go of the female. Here he goes. Another opportunity. There we go. Chase, chase, chase. Off he goes. You see how incredible is that? He's trying to loosen. I'm just going to go back. Sorry, there's another vehicle trying to pass. Okay, no, never mind. They're going around us. Now, you see how incredible that is. Okay, we do actually have to move because I've parked onto the road now. And now there's a whole lot of vehicles coming up and down the road. But I'm going to send you back across to James, who, well, he's playing with a frog.
Right, now, as we open up here, I just want to show you the mouth. Okay, that's a really sick joke. It's still having some nerve reactions, and in fact, the last time I did this, I bent the head forward. It's actually biting me. It is so disconcerting. Anyway, it cannot be alive. All of its organs are lying next to it. Here are the teeth. Those are the 2 teeth the bullfrog has, 2 bottom teeth that they use to fight with each other. You've seen them doing that fighting there, and I must again excuse the muck on my hand, but there's not much I can do about that. That's rather disgusting. But most disconcertingly is these very sort of sharpish ridges that they have all the way along the side of the mouth there. Now, it's a little bit like, I'm trying to think what it would be like. Well, they feel like sort of plastic teeth, but they're very sharp ridges that make me unable to kind of get my finger out of its mouth when I want it. It's biting me. It's literally biting me. It's dead, but it's biting me. It is the weirdest, most disconcerting feeling in the world. Zombie frog, as Kirsten says. Absolutely the zombie frog. Anyway, while I get my finger out of the zombie frog's jaw, here is its intestine around here, and you can see it's folded over. It's not kind of, I mean, if you take a rat apart, for example, its intestine will come out in one sort of long stripe. This has got a whole lot of folds through which the food is digested, so it's not actually that long. And as Steph was saying to me, of course, it's a meat eater only, and so it doesn't have a particularly long intestine. David, just look here quickly. Now, this frog is not alive. Please don't think it's alive. I promise you it's not alive. That's just nervous reactions. It is quite astounding that it's this level of dead and it's still doing that. And it's because of these exposed nerves here. You see that? That is an exposed nerve, and I'm sure it's sending all sorts of signals back to the brain that it shouldn't be. Electrical impulses. Quite bizarre. And I mean, that's not a heartbeat that it's feeling here. Here is the heart over there. That's the heart. No, sorry, there's the heart. And we poured some salt water on it to see if we could make it go again, but I'm afraid its heart seems to have stopped completely. As I said, there's one of the lungs. I don't know where the other lung is, and I think sorry, there it is. It's on the end of the trachea. There are the 2 lungs, the trachea And I think somewhere in there is what allows this frog to make it such a deep sounding noise. Anyway, that's going to be it from the frog, everyone. So we're going to hand you back over to Taylor, who found the frog, and then I'm going to clean up this muck and go and have some breakfast. Are you hungry, David? You must be after all of that. Yes. We'll see you this afternoon at 4 o'clock. Thanks for joining us in the tent.
Frog legs for breakfast it is. Sorry, I've got somebody driving right up behind me. Anyways, we'll just let them race on past. Right, unfortunately we're going to have to say goodbye to all of you, but it's been elephants and loads of frogs. I hope you've had a fantastic morning with us, but let's shoot back across to Jamie, and hopefully she makes it to those lions in time. Rightio, we're going to stay with me for just a little bit longer as Jamie's racing along. Let those vehicles get ahead of us and we shall carry on. Oh, and I must tell you very quickly that unfortunately the lion that we were looking for unfortunately decided to lay down and not walk any further. Jamie's ready for you. Let's go back across to her.
Made it just in time. There we go. And a big thank you to the guys that called us into Ephraim from Cheetah Plains. And there we have one Nkuhuma Lioness lying up exhausted after having caught a buffalo by the looks of things, all by herself. It's only her here. The buffalo carcass is lying a little bit off to my right, but I thought you'd probably rather see the lion than the dead buffalo for the end of our sunrise safari. So bear with me a moment, we're going to get a bit closer to her. How long have we got, Kirst? Must be nearly done. Okay. Now the buffalo is just off to my right. And there's our lovely lioness. So what a... Oh, she's calling. Awesome. Soft, gentle contact calls, calling to the rest of their pride. Hey guys, breakfast ready. Don't mind me, just done all the hard work. What a special way to end off our sunrise safari. And of course they will be here this afternoon for our sunset safari. Well, this is the joy of these live safaris. Kenan and I were just discussing it. If we knew what was going to happen, I would have stayed with the buffalo the entire time, but I didn't, and it wouldn't be fun if we knew what was going to happen all of the time. But we have ended off with this beautiful sight. What a wonderful way to end. And on that note, it is the end of our sunrise safari. So a big thank you to Kirsty and to Lou in Final Control, as well as to all of you for joining us. Thank you to Kenan for his wonderful camera work. I don't want to talk too much because she's going to keep calling. So I thought it might be quite nice for our last few seconds, if she keeps calling, to just listen to the sound of her calling to the rest of her family. Have a wonderful day, everybody. We'll see you soon.